have my
Guides.
and you have my
Guides.
and mine.
Guides.
Welcome to my advanced guide for Stellaris 3.0. The main focus of this episode is your second tradition tree pick. For a full list of chapters, check out the description. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Orthethi Interplanetary Assembly. The year is 2213. We're about to have our first space combat here in the Kurus system. So let's jump in and have a go. And of course we won this first engagement against the crystals. Now there's kind of two reasons for that, and when we won we get to look at this fantastic combat stats screen. So the first reason is we had really good damage to hull ratio. Our nuclear missiles were extra effective against them, and we had a lot of nuclear missiles on our ships. Yep, we did lose 4 ships, which is a bit of an issue. That's some alloys that were kind of wasted needlessly. I wanted to engage now because I've defeated this fleet. I'm going to be able to connect this system up to the rest of my systems for my trade network, which at the moment is only a few trade value but will grow. And on top of that, I'm going to get access to completing a special project here and getting the research for crystal hull plating, which will be really nice. So looking at this combat screen, there are some important things that we can really take a look at. So after you've been engaged in an enemy fleet, first off, you can see what their weapons were by hovering over these screens here, which will tell you their damage to your armor, shields, and hull. You can also see if they had any point defense. You can see the accuracy of their weapons, or in essence the hit ratio, as well as looking at the evasion of their ships. You can see the same about your own fleets. And on top of that, you can see the average damage they did to your hull, armor, and shields. Now, this will basically allow you to tool your fleets to enemy fleets after the first engagement. Because after the first engagement, you'll get a sheet like this will come up. You can see exactly what their weapons are and what their efficiencies are, and you can change your fleet to match it. So if I were to come up against crystals again, I really wouldn't want to have more crystal hull plating. I wouldn't want more hull. I'd want to have more shields and armor, because those would be good defenses against their weaponry. On the other hand, I can see that my weapons were only effective if they were dealing extra damage to hull, because I've dealt no damage to armor or shields, which shows they have no armor or shields in their fleet. Now after the combat here, I am going to click repair fleet, and let's see what that does. Well, that's going to return them here to my home system, and that's going to help me in 2 ways. The first thing is that here at my home Starbase, I have a crew quarters. Now, crew quarters is going to reduce the upkeep of all my ships in orbit of the station by 25%. At this point, with only a few ships, it's not such a big deal, but later on, when I start getting very large fleets, I'm going to want them to be constantly docked at crew quarters, because if they're not docked at crew quarters, it's going to be something of an issue for me. Now, with the neighbours here to my north, I'm going to do something. I'm going to close my borders with them, because these northeastern neighbours, they're not friendly to me, and on top of that, I don't want them to grab any of these systems one jump away from my space. So I'm going to close borders with them, and that will stop them being able to expand past me. On the other hand, my neighbours to my west, I am friendly with. I'm not going to close borders with them at this point because it would damage our relations somewhat. I may close borders later on simply to block them off from taking too many of these systems in the middle here. If you've been enjoying this video and other videos on my channel, please consider subscribing. It will help get my videos out to other players like you. Here on my capital, I am starting to get something of an amenities issue. To deal with that, I can do a couple of things. I can either build a hollow theatres, which is going to give me a big block of amenities and a small amount of unity for one consumer good per pop that works there. Or the other alternative I can do is to build this luxury residence. Now this luxury residence is going to add housing and add 5 amenities. The problem with that is that these 5 amenities are only going to be enough to balance my economy right now. So actually I'm going to build the hollow theatre, that's going to balance me up, and I'm going to make sure only one specialist works in that role, which should be okay. To do that, I will unemploy a single bureaucrat here, And on this generator world, I am going to be building the energy grid building. Now, this is a really good building. It's very important. What it's going to do is not only add one technician job, which is actually not the most important part, but it's going to increase the production of all of my technicians by 1. What that's going to do is it's going to increase their base value. So all of these bonuses you're seeing here, the bonus from the generator world, the empire, the stability, the governor, those are all affecting the base value. So if I add 1 to the base value, I'm also going to be getting an extra 100% there. So I'm basically adding 2. And the more modifiers I get, the more I will be getting. So these resource buildings are really, really important now on your resource producing worlds to get extra resources out. Now here I'm going to be taking the hydroponics bay technology, hydroponics farming. Hydroponics bays are now fantastic in 3.0. I'm going to be using them to produce all of the food my empire needs. I am not going to be using farmers. If I want energy now, I'm going to be using technicians because they produce more energy than a farmer who trades their food for energy. And that will mean that I can basically just focus on technician jobs with a few minor jobs on key worlds. So now I've had this alien logs project. If you ever find that, you should do it immediately. It is a fantastic project that is going to give us something really, really cool, which is going to be pushing our science right up into the stratosphere very soon. And because I don't need both of my entertainers working, I'm going to unemploy a single entertainer. So I will get this unemployed pop, but I'll just pop that pop straight back into the bureaucrat job I had before. So I'm going to be getting positive amenities, increased happiness, and some unity from this entertainer, which is nice. And here we are. We now are going to get the rubricator chain. And what have we got? We've got the planet over there, which is really good. We're going to survey that planet as soon as possible. So now we've got a relic world. That's what the rubricator has done. There's a site here, kleptomaniac rats. You can start doing it now if you want to. I absolutely would not recommend it. Don't do it. Just hold off on it for now. On the other hand, the planet itself, you should definitely colonize that planet. It's a relic world. It's really good. Here I'm going to be taking the powered exoskeletons because that will take me down the robotic path, which will give me assembly jobs. I really want those assembly jobs. It's 2216. I'm lacking these robots. They'd be really useful to have. Here at my home starbase, I am going to replace this trade hub with another shipyard. I've looked, none of the adjacent systems have trade value that I'm not already collecting from starbases and the like, so really this trade hub is not a value add. An extra shipyard on the other hand is going to be useful for me putting out a fleet. Now when you build some armies, it's important to note the armies will always start off in space unless you've already got armies on the ground, and that's assault armies I mean. So any recruited army, at the beginning that's just assault armies, later on it's others, will always immediately go into space. But if I were to land some armies on this planet, which I'm going to do now, and recruit an extra army, we'll just see those guys land down briefly. Here they are. Now that I've recruited this extra army, when it's finished, it will stay on the surface. Why is that important? Well, in a situation where the capital, your system, is owned by an enemy power and they have fleets in being in that system, you probably don't want to be building an army on that planet that's just jumping straight into orbit and getting shot to bits. So having some armies on a planet like this to be able to recruit extra armies is really quite useful. It's time to unlock our second tradition tree, so let's dive into that and have a look. So we already have completed the expansion tree, mainly for that nice juicy pop growth bonus, as well as an additional starting pop on all of our colonies. Which tradition tree can we go down next? Well, at the moment I've got some neighbours to my east. Whilst they're not aggressive now, I may be wanting to start building up a fleet in order to fight them. So if I'm thinking about doing that, I'll probably want to go down the Supremacy tree. As well, if you're in some sort of multiplayer situation, around this time 2217 or earlier probably, because in a multiplayer situation you'd be at 0.75 times speed, you almost certainly want to go for Supremacy next. The war doctrines are really important, the buffs to your fire rate as well as the increased fleet sizes and reduced naval capacities are really quite good and useful. Right now I'm actually not going to pick Supremacy. So what else is there? There's diplomacy. I could form a federation with my neighbour. Diplomacy is great for the federation aspect of it, but actually my neighbour to my west, I don't want to form a federation with them at this time. I don't actually know what's going on in the rest of the galaxy, so that's not what I'm going to rush down. On the other hand, there is discovery. Well, discovery is definitely good to get that bonus to research speed, as well as getting the faith in science. So I'm going to reduce my pop upkeep on researchers by 20%, which will be a direct reduction in their consumer goods usage for me, which is okay. For other races, for instance, for machines where you're going to reduce their energy usage, that's fantastic. But right now, whilst I really do need to take discovery early to benefit from the bonuses to survey speed and anomaly research speed, I'm probably not going to pick this one. Domination, on the other hand, that's going to give me a reduced cost at tile blockers like I've gone through before, as well as we've got some other good bonuses in here like the increased influence and a little bit of a bonus to our workers. Prosperity, well, that's definitely, I think this is a really good one. It's got some great bonuses to your mining station output, as well as bonuses to your specialist pop resource output, and some bonuses to housing, which will increase your planet cap and therefore increase your population growth due to logistic growth. Harmony is, yeah, poor harmony. So reducing my food consumption, pretty irrelevant. Leader lifespan is fine, but really not that relevant. The bulwark of harmony is good and the stability is good, but to get there, I'm not really gonna enjoy most of those, as well as an empire sprawl reduction of 10%, which would be negligible. So at the moment, the main options that I'm really looking at here are discovery, supremacy, and prosperity. And in this case, actually, I think I'm going to go with discovery, simply because I want to complete this tree a bit earlier to get the bonus research speed, as well as getting the faith in science and the research alternatives, leader experience gain, this kind of stuff. The survey speed is nice, but it's not really going to help me anymore. I am locked in. So I'm going to go with discovery. I could also go with supremacy here if I was going to go really aggressive, which is not what I'm going to be doing in this playthrough right now. So let's take discovery. I've been offered a defensive pact by my neighbours here, the Keepers of Avabran, but I'm actually going to decline it. Why am I going to decline? Well, I'm not afraid of my neighbours to my east. I also don't think this AI would be particularly helpful in a war, and if they were to go to war, I don't want to get dragged into a war with them. So I'm going to decline at this point. In addition, I'd also have to pay an influence premium to have this defensive pact. Not worth it. So on the edge of my borders here, I have a desert world, which is 60% habitability to my species. Now, I wouldn't recommend you attempt to colonize anything below a 60% habitability world. If you do, you're going to be getting massive reduction to your pop growth and your resource output, as well as big increases to your upkeep and amenities usage of any pops on that planet. Now, what would be okay here? Well, if you had trade value and you had administrators on that planet, yeah, that's kind of okay. You could build a trade world on some, an administration world with some clerks or something like that. If you had a world that was 0 or 20 or 40% or 50% habitability, but it's really not a strategy that's going to probably win you the game. However, more pops is better than no pops. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend colonizing any world below this 60%. If you disagree with me on that one, please let me know. I mean, there are arguments for why you could do that, but I just personally don't think so. And on Tritonis here, I'm going to be building an alloy foundry because I want to increase my alloy production just so I can make sure that I'm safe from my belligerent neighbours there to my east. Because something I can do, okay, I don't know their fleet power, apparently, but I can see from this their total diplomatic weight, and I can see their weight due to pops, economy, and technology. Well, this makes it a simple math equation. 231 minus 90 minus 75 minus 44 equals their military fleet power. That gives them a total fleet power at the moment of 22. So if we go and check out our own fleet power, we are at 15. They're pretty equivalent to us. We don't need to worry about them. So now I've got hydroponic bays, I am going to put them in some of my star bases, because actually those hydroponic bays are going to cover this, and actually I'll still have some food to sell. And on top of that, I can reduce the number of farmers I have on my capital working. Each pop here is only producing 7.9 food, whereas in energy I'd be getting 11.5. I'd much rather have that as energy, straight off. And now I'm definitely going to be taking the robots here, because that's going to allow me to build the robot assembly plants, which will be getting turning 2 alloys into +2 pop growth per month, or +2 assembly growth per month on my planet. That's pretty important. A little note on trade now and trade protection. So if I click down at the bottom here on the trade route map mode, I can see the trade routes and how they're flowing back to my capital here, back to Deathlar. Now, if I click on an individual starbase by clicking the center, I can choose where I am sending my trade value. Now, in the end, you always want to be sending your trade value back to your capital, your trade capital, but there will be situations where you want the route it takes to not go on a certain path due to pirates, due to not owning the territory. There can be a variety of reasons. You can also see from here the trade protection each system has. You start with a base of 2, you get others, you get +5 for unlocking a tradition in the diplomacy tree, amongst other things. There are galactic resolutions that do something about it, but we probably want to bring that up. At the moment, we're only pushing 2 trade value back, so it's not a problem. If you hover over piracy, sit here, you can see that the current piracy, which and then you can see the max in these 2 systems, as long as that max piracy is under our protection, we'll never have piracy in the system. But how do we bring up our trade protection? Well, if we were to build modules here, we could build a hangar bay, for instance. That's going to increase our trade protection and increase the protection range of our starbases. Starbases start off with a protection range of 0. They just completely protect the system they are in. And then as you build these additional modules, gun batteries, missile bays, and hangar bays, the trade protection range increases by 1. So a fully tooled up starbase, for instance, this starbase over here at Perima, if we look at that one, that is giving out trade protection 2 systems away. It's giving out 23 trade protection quite a way off, which is meaning that from Perima all the way back to our capital there, we're not going to be losing any trade value for quite a while. That's where I'm going to leave this episode. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a like. If you've got any feedback, please leave a comment. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel on Patreon, check out the link in the description.